dealing with the public nature of pregnancy. As intensely private as pregnancy is, it's also inescapably public. Your partner's growing belly can bring out the best and the worst in people. Perfect strangers will open doors for her, offer to help her carry things, give up their seats in crowded subway cars and buses. In some ways, people's interest in pregnant women and in the process of creating life is kind of heartwarming. But there may come a point when this outpouring of interest in her status and concern for her comfort begins to feel like an invasion of privacy. People would often come up to my wife when she was standing in the checkout line at the grocery store and start chatting. The conversations would usually begin fairly innocuously, with questions like, "So when are you due?" or pronouncements about the baby's gender. But after a while, the horror stories would inevitably come out. Tales of debilitating morning sickness, or 10-month pregnancies, or 30-hour labors, emergency C-sections, anesthesia that didn't work, and on and on. And as if that weren't enough, people would, without even asking, start touching and rubbing and patting her belly. Perhaps the strangest thing about the public nature of pregnancy is that many women seem to take it all in stride. I kept waiting for my wife to bite some belly rubber's hand off, but she never did. For some men, however, this touching business can bring out feelings of anger. "Hey, nobody touches my woman." If this happens to you, it's best to take your cues from your partner. If she doesn't mind, try to relax a little. I still have the white bathrobe I was wearing the morning my wife and I found out we were pregnant the first time. I remember standing nervously in the kitchen. The countertops were cluttered with vials of colored powders and liquids and droppers, and even a small container filled with my wife's first morning urine. Fortunately, do-it-yourself pregnancy detection kits are a lot less complicated today than they used to be, but I don't think they're quite as much fun. I remember feeling like a Nobel Prize-winning chemist on the edge of making a discovery that would change the entire world. I carefully dropped several drops of urine into one of the vials of powder. I stirred the mixture with the specially provided swizzle stick and rinsed it, and then slowly added the contents to the other vial. In all honesty, the results that we got 20 minutes later weren't much of a surprise. But that didn't make it any less thrilling. I'd always wanted to have children, and suddenly it seemed that all of my dreams were going to come true. It was like hitting the $1 million jackpot on a nickel slot. Relief and pride. At the same time, I was filled with an incredible feeling of relief. Secretly, I'd always been afraid that I was sterile and that I'd have to be satisfied with taking someone else's kids to the circus or the baseball game. I also felt a surge of pride. After all, I was a man, a fully functional man. All right, a stud even. And by getting my wife pregnant, I'd somehow lived up to my highest potential. Over the years, I've interviewed thousands of expectant dads, and the feelings I just described of relief and pride are extremely common. But what if you're an expectant dad who conceives thanks to artificial insemination, or in vitro fertilization, or through a sperm donor, and you don't have that same biological connection to your child? Well, you may miss out on the relief part of things, but certainly not the pride part. In my view, you're no less a dad-to-be than the guy whose partner is carrying his biological child. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. More importantly, as you go through the pregnancy and this book, you'll find that you and that biologically more connected dad are going to have the same emotional and psychological experiences. But knowing you're pregnant can be a bit scary at first. If you're like a lot of guys, you could develop a whole set of completely irrational fears. At some point after the initial excitement passes, a surprising number of men find themselves experiencing this crazy fear that the child their partner is carrying is not really theirs. Psychologist Gerald Lee Shapiro interviewed more than 200 men whose partners were pregnant, and he found that 60% of them acknowledged fleeting thoughts, fantasies, or nagging doubts that they might not really be the biological father of their child. The majority of these men don't actually believe their partners are having affairs. Rather, as Shapiro writes, these feelings are symptoms of a common type of insecurity, the fear that many men have that they simply aren't capable of doing anything as incredible as creating life, and that someone more potent must have done the job.